So this is a review of Unit 1. It will probably be in 2 videos, so make sure you watch both. First thing I want to review is evaluating a set of functions. Whether it's a piecewise or a graph, we need to be able to find f of x, okay? So you'll get a set of piecewise equations like this, and then it'll ask you for what's the f of 6, what's the f of -2, -8. What you've got to do is determine which equation over here you're going to use. And that is based on what your x is. So this first one says f of 6. So I want to know which one of these equations has the description, like right here, this restrictions, where x would be 6. So if you look at number 1, it says x is greater than or equal to -1. That fits my description of x being 6. So I'm going to just take this equation, I'm going to plug in a 6, and then I'm going to solve it. Okay, so I'm going to simplify inside. That gives me -2 times 5. The absolute of 5 is 5, and -2 times 5 is -10. So when x is 6, y is -10. All right, so let's look at the one for f of -2. So look over here, -2. So look at the second one. X is between -4 and -1. Well, that's where -2 would fit. This says my y is 3, so I don't even have an equation for that one. All right, let's look at the last one. It says -8. So this function says x is less than -4. This is the one I would use. So I'm going to take this equation, and I'm going to plug in my x, and I'm going to solve it. So -1/2 of -8, +4, and +4 minus 1 is 3. Okay? So that's with this set of piecewise functions. Now what you're going to see on the end of course test is that they're going to give you 2 sets of equations. And you are going to have to do a process with it. So this says we're going to take 3 of h of 2, and we're going to add to it 4 of g1. So let's look at each of them individually. 3 times, which one in the h of x would 2 fit? It would be this one, greater or equal. So we're going to use this equation, and we're going to put our 2 in. That's 3 times h of 2. Now this second one says +4, and this time g of 1. So these 2 descriptions, this would be where 1 would land. So we're going to take this equation, and we're going to put in our 1. This is 4 times g of 1. Now let's simplify. 2 times 4 is 8. 1 squared is 1. 8 plus 1 is 9. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 times 9 is 27. 4 times 3 is 12. And 27 plus 12 is 39. So A would be our answer. Okay, now this is a sample question from the EOC. So these are the types of questions you're going to get. So let's see, I think I have another one. Yep, set up just like it. This time you have only one set of equations, but they did give you an expression to find out. So the first thing we're going to do is find what h of -4 is. So this one says it equals -4. We're going to use that -1/2. Plug in our -4 minus 15. To that, we're going to add 3 times h of -2. So this one would be where -2 would fit. So we're going to say 3 times 20 minus 3 times -2 squared. Now I ran out of room. But we've got -1/2 of -4, that's a +2, minus 15. And then we're going to simplify this parentheses. This is 20 minus 3, and then negative 2 squared is a positive 4. Okay? So 2 minus 15 would be negative 13. And we're going to simplify this parentheses here. 3 times 4 is 12. And then 20 minus 12 is 8. And then 3 times 8 is 24. And then negative 13 plus 24, that will give us a positive 11. So this answer is a positive 11. Now notice there's no multiple choice here. This would be a type of question where you would have to type in the answer. Okay, there are some of those like that on the end of course test. All right. Second thing I want to review is looking at solving absolute values. You already have these steps in your notes. We're just going to follow through and do a couple examples, okay? So the first step says we have to get the absolute value alone. So that means anything that's on the outside has got to move, okay? So we're going to move everything on the outside first. I'll divide by negative 5. And we get the absolute of 8 plus 2x equals 6. Once we have gotten the absolute value on the side by itself, then we take the absolute value portion, set it equal to the positive and to the negative of the solution, and we solve. So we're going to subtract 8 and divide by 2. We're still going to subtract 8 over here. And we're still dividing by 2. So you get negative 1 and negative 7 as your solutions. Okay? So the goal is to get the absolute alone, then set it to the positive and negative of the solution, and solve. If the absolute value is the only thing on that side, then you're ready to set up your two equations. To the positive and to the negative of 18. And solve. Okay? Now, we also did absolute value inequalities. Or we graphed them, I'm so sorry. So we graphed them and we actually set them up as a piecewise. Okay? Remember, we have linear equations. These are both lines. They just happen to intersect and change direction, okay? So remember, we set it up first. We do f of x. And then we set up our two problems. One exactly like it is. The other is the negative of this. So it's the negative of x minus 5. Or negative x plus 5, okay, if we rewrite it. Now we need to look at our restrictions, okay, on the positive slope. That's this one. That would be our line continued. We start at 5 and we go to infinity. So x is greater than or equal to 5. On the negative line, that's this one, we are starting at infinity and we go to 5. So it's less than 5 on the x. Okay? So remember, the first statement, when you are setting up your two piecewise, is exactly what it says. The second statement, you multiply everything by minus 1. So negative 2x plus 1. Your restriction is your turning point. So I'm going to say that's a half. And then if you look at the positive line, that's this one. The positive slope is bigger than 1/2 or equal. The negative slope is less than 1/2. Okay? Now, solving absolute inequalities is set up just like an equation of absolute value. The only difference is that if you multiply or divide by negative, you have to flip the sign. Okay, so I want to do this one that's got the negative in it. So here we would divide by negative 9, because remember the first step is get the absolute alone. Because I divided by a negative number, I have to flip the inequality, and that gives me a positive 5. Now I have to set it up just like it is, and then I have to set it up to the negative of 5 and flip the inequality. And then I'm just going to solve both problems. So x is less than 8. If we add 3 here, we get x is greater than negative 2. You may have to graph them. Little number, big number. Less than 8, greater than 2. Negative 2. They should meet in the middle for this particular problem, and they should have open dots, open points. Make sure that you move everything to one side, okay? Absolute value has to be alone, but how you move it, what you move first, makes a difference, okay? You always move the thing furthest away from the x first. So once you get the absolute alone, set it up like it is, and then set it to the negative by flipping the sign and changing the solution to the opposite sign. Solve both of them, and you are doing the same operations each time. Okay? Less than or equal to 8, greater than or equal to 4. Solid dots at both. Less than 8, greater than 4. Okay? So I'm going to pause and we're going to go to the other part of the review.